listener production.
Hey, Tara Cassidy with you. Happy Friday and welcome to The Briefing. After nearly 4 years at the top, Gal Gadot, Ryan Reynolds and The Rock's Red Notice has finally been knocked off its perch. And not by another star-studded action flick, but by a fictional K-pop group slaying demons?
I do think a fire has kind of been relit, and I do think the impact of K-pop Demon Hunters can't be understated. Their impact has been huge. They've beat Destiny's Child for records on Billboard Hot 100.
That deep dive into Netflix's most watched film ever and how it's just one piece of a larger, more deliberate puzzle is coming up in the second half of this episode. First though, let's get into the headlines with Chris Spyrou. It's Friday the 12th of September.
Hey Tara, and to you listening. The FBI's released photos of the man they suspect shot right-wing activist Charlie Kirk at a university rally south of Salt Lake City. The 31-year-old conservative was shot in the neck yesterday while addressing an estimated 3,000 people strong crowd at Utah Valley University. In the image released by authorities, a young man that looks around university or college age can be seen wearing dark clothing, a long-sleeve shirt, black cap and sunnies, with FBI Special Agent in charge Robert Bowles telling media they've already found what's believed to be the weapon that killed Kirk.
It is a high-powered bolt-action rifle. That rifle was recovered in a wooded area where the shooter had fled.
And the rifle's now being analysed along with a palm print, forearm print and footwear also located at the scene. And according to the Wall Street Journal, investigators also found ammunition that had trans and anti-fascist messaging inside the gun, pointing to a possible motive.
Now, I understand there are a lot of questions about motive. I assure you that all leads, tips are being fully investigated. As of this morning, we have received more than 130 tips.
And according to authorities, they've also been able to track the movements of the suspect on the day, saying he arrived just before midday before making his way up a stairwell to the shooting location. And afterwards, he fled to the other side of the building, jumped off and ran into the local neighbourhood, Chris.
Yeah, and meanwhile, speaking at a Pentagon 9/11 memorial service yesterday, Donald Trump said Charlie Kirk was a giant of his generation, a champion of liberty who will be missed greatly, and that the husband and father of two will be honoured in coming weeks.
I'm pleased to announce that I will soon be awarding Charlie Kirk posthumously the Presidential Medal of Freedom.
A date's not yet been set for Kirk's funeral, but it's been suggested it'll likely be after Trump returns from a visit to King Charles in the UK next week.
Back home now, where a Brisbane teen accused of serious terror offences is no longer in police custody and has been released on bail. 18-year-old Max Belter was arrested earlier in the week after counter-terror officers raided his home at The Gap, where they allegedly found chemicals used to build explosives, a graphic Islamic State instructional video depicting a beheading, a 256-page magazine providing detailed instructions for carrying out various forms of terrorist attacks, as well as 32 right-wing aligned books, including Adolf Hitler's manifesto Mein Kampf and US terrorist the Unabomber's manifesto as well.
Belter was charged with 2 counts of possessing and controlling violent extremist material linked to a prescribed terrorist organisation, which carries a maximum penalty of 5 years behind bars. He fronted the Brisbane Magistrates Court yesterday, crying and with his head in his hands. His parents were in court for the hearing, with his father seen sobbing as the magistrate granted him bail on strict conditions including a curfew, limited access to the internet and mandatory reporting to police.
The Jeffrey Epstein scandal has now spilled into London, with UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer sacking his US ambassador, Peter Mandelson, over newly revealed links to the convicted child sex offender. It comes after the release of a number of documents this week, including a letter in which he refers to Epstein as his best pal and a 2008 email telling him to fight for early release from jail.
The British Embassy in Washington says he was let go after the new information showed his relationship with the disgraced financier was materially different to what was known at the time of his appointment. In a departing letter to embassy staff, Mandelson said being US ambassador was a privilege of his life, that he regrets the circumstances surrounding his departure, and that he continues to feel utterly awful about his association with Epstein and the, quote, plight of his victims.
Always easy to feel sorry after the fact, but this guy did stand by Epstein on many occasions after what he did came out. Now, For some context, this is the third time Mandelson has been sacked in his long-standing political career, which has spanned more than 4 decades. The other two were in the late 90s and early 2000s over allegations of misconduct. Now, this dismissal comes little over 6 months into this new role.
Yeah, and we're also talking about someone here, Tara, who's known in the UK as the, quote, Prince of Darkness, not Ozzy Osbourne's Prince of Darkness, a different kind of Prince of Darkness. And that's a title that he got during his years as the government's Director of Communication or Media Spin Doctor, and, you know, his ability to spin a story and get politicians out of trouble. So something worth noting here is that that best power letter is actually in that infamous birthday book that Trump got caught up in this week. You know, that drawing of a female body and a note about secrets featuring the president's signature, claims that Trump and the White House have denied.
There's a new leading cause of death killing Aussies more than any other disease, and it's dementia. According to a new Australian Institute of Health report, there's been a steep rise in the number of dementia diagnoses and deaths in Australia, accounting for nearly 10% of fatalities in 2023 alone, and 1 in 10 Aussies now dying from it. Now, it's the first time that dementia has actually been listed as the country's leading cause of death, having taken the very non-coveted title from the nation's now second biggest killer, which is coronary heart disease.
According to the report, dementia has become the leading cause of death in both men and women, impacting hundreds of thousands of us right now, but those numbers are expected to go up rapidly and hit over 1 million in coming decades. And despite the fact it does impact both genders, 2/3 of Aussies living with it are women, partially because they live longer than men, with things like hormones and genetics also understood to play a role.
Yeah, and experts basically say that the best way to reduce your chances of getting dementia is high levels of education, which I thought was interesting, exercise and physical activity, less surprising, staying socially engaged and doing cognitive activities and mentally stimulating work, so reading, studying, etc. And that those people who are overweight, drink, smoke, have depression, diabetes, high blood pressure, or are exposed to more air pollution are actually at greater risk.
And here's a story to finish up your week that I wish I had known yesterday before spending $2 a litre filling up my car. But look, Tara, Australia's cheapest city for petrol has been revealed, and it's sadly not where you or I live, but rather our mates on the West Coast who've taken out the top spot. New figures from the ACCC show the average price of petrol has dropped by 6 cents across the country's main cities in the June quarter, with Perth scoring the lowest average price on $1.71 per litre and Melbourne the highest on $1.80.
Oh, what a win. And as for those of you in Sydney, Chris, your average price per litre dropped by 8 cents. For me in Brizzy, it was down 14. Woohoo! And both of those are now sitting on $1.77 per litre, which honestly, it's still just all stupidly expensive. Things are so pricey right now. And I just think I've spent way too much on fuel in my life than I care for. And don't you just miss the days of your petrol bill not starting with a 100 or a 90 even? Like, oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, look, my life hack and my famous life hack is I'm kind of like the Goldilocks of my family. I pivot among cars that as soon as one starts to get empty, I just move into the next one.
Cars, plural?
Yeah, mum, dads, my brothers, my grandparents. I famously do not own a car, Tara Cassidy, and I try to avoid filling up the Bowser as much as I can.
Hot tip.
Yes, now look, quickly, while we're talking about driving, we brought you guys another story earlier this week about some of our biggest motorist pet peeves, and many of you weighed in on our broadcast channel on Instagram at The Briefing Podcast. For Karen, what boils their blood the most on the road is people on their phones at traffic lights who make you miss the lights because they're not paying attention. Preach, Karen.
Yes, I agree. And Eloise said, controversial one, by the way, people driving massive four-drive utes in the city.
Ooh.
That might ruffle some feathers, Eloise. And also tailgating and switching lanes. Then a few others agreed on things like tailgating, people who think indicating is optional. I thought that one was spicy. And people who drive like they're on a mission, so you can't change lanes. And I am with you there. But the most popular answer of the day, Chris, was people who go slow in the fast lane.
Oh, our impatient little briefers. Now, look, that brings our headlines to a close for today and this week. But don't fret, we've got a deep dive coming up for you. It's actually my deep dive, looking into the new movie that's breaking Netflix Records and how it's part of a broader strategy to catch our attention here in the West. Stick around, that deep dive is coming up for you next. Rumi is a K-pop idol by day, demon hunter by night, and the fate of the world depends on her very next performance. That's the plotline of Netflix's most watched film ever, KPop Demon Hunters.
They're stealing the souls of our fans? Let's send those disgusting demons back to the depths where they belong!
Yeah!
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 We're going up, it's our moment. You know together we're glowing. Gonna be golden.
And that's one of the songs from the film that you might have caught in your feeds lately, because since its release in August, it's amassed over 450 million streams on Spotify alone. As to the movie itself, it's broken Netflix records, having now been watched nearly 300 million times, with special sing-along viewings in cinemas right across the globe. But what is it about K-pop Demon Hunters that's captured the world's attention? How does it fit within the broader context of South Korea's influence, and how ready are Western audiences for what's coming next? Megan Moon is a PhD candidate at the University of Adelaide and K-pop expert, and she joins me now. Megan, welcome to the briefing. Did you ever think there'd come a day where an animation about a demon-fighting K-pop group would be the world's most watched Netflix movie?
Look, honestly, with K-pop, anything is possible. We've got groups like aespa who have a virtual leader who helps them, kill baddies. So I guess a K-pop demon hunting girl group isn't that much of a stretch. What I think is surprising is the amount of success that it's had, and the just insane reception that we've had, not just, in Australia, but all across the globe.
How do you think this happened? Why do you think this film is resonating so strongly with global audiences?
I think it really taps into why K-pop is so popular. It's not a surprise, I think, for me, that something that has the fun animation and is engaging, younger audiences is really popular. But I think the most endearing thing is its representation of fans in a really positive light. People are seeing themselves reflected in a way that isn't maybe making fun of them, but is saying that they're kind of in on the joke. We have some of those scenes in the movie where it shows the screaming fans, and that's me. I've certainly been there. So I think it also really taps into this idea of the hybridity of K-pop, in which it really uses, familiar musical forms, but it's something different. It's something exciting. And I think that is really what the movie captures.
Yeah, look, zooming out a little bit, Korean culture and entertainment have been seeping into Western pop culture for years now. I'm thinking everything from skincare to Korean fried chicken, Gangnam Style going global, the 2019 thriller Parasite that won an Oscar. Was this all a happy accident or part of a bigger, broader cultural strategy?
It's definitely a bigger cultural strategy. The Hallyu phenomenon, as it's known, has been going on 20 years strong now. What we're seeing at the moment is, the real culmination of all those efforts and all the soft power that they've really been building up. But it was no accident. It's really a strategy that has been working towards this big moment that we're currently celebrating. And yeah, like you said, skincare, Parasite, all of these things, even the K-dramas that are all over Netflix. It's all kind of just this big pile-on, and an excellent one at that.
Yeah, I want to bring it back to, Australia. What role do we play in all of this? Some people might not know, but we do have a small but growing fandom here, and we do have some strong Aussie links to the world of K-pop and Korean entertainment. What can you tell us about those?
So what's really interesting is we see, these huge fandoms in the US and Europe and South America and obviously Asia. But, we have quite a passionate fan base down here in Australia, one that I have been a participant of. But also, we've got actual involvement. So while Australians are still kind of relatively rare in K-pop, the Australians that are performing in K-pop in those actual groups are a part of some of the biggest K-pop groups there is. Just look at Rosé from Blackpink. She was born in New Zealand, raised in Melbourne, and so she's currently, appearing on Jimmy Fallon with her Aussie accent, and we're hearing that, she won a VMA just yesterday or the day before, and she's up there representing Australia. And Lily from NMIX, Jake from hyping, obviously Stray Kids as well. And we're also really seeing them show the love back to Australia. So Stray Kids have been to Australia multiple times now, and you can tell they kind of feel the love and they give it back to their Australian fans.
These K-pop groups are manufactured and they go through an incredibly grueling process to become and stay a K-pop star. Do you think having someone like Rosé, who you mentioned there, is not American? She has a different accent. I know she was born in New Zealand, but I mean, she does sound Australian. Do you think that was a deliberate move by the K-pop industry to globalize K-pop's image, to kind of broaden it beyond what you would expect?
Yeah, absolutely. So in my PhD research, I've actually looked at the amount of international idols. So this actual phenomenon in which we're seeing the amount of idols who weren't born in Korea, aren't Korean even, and how much that's growing. And so I definitely think it's a specific strategy that they're doing to kind of have this global appeal, a specific regional appeal that we're seeing. And, even things like the group Cat's Eye, who were formed by Hybe, the group that created BTS and Geffen Records in the US. And, one of them's Korean, one of them is Filipino, we've got Lara, who's Indian American. And so we're seeing this real actual strategy where they're forming these global girl groups or these global groups, and they're really specifically engaging people from all over the world. So yeah, it's definitely on purpose. It's no mistake.
Yeah, and look, from the sounds of it and how you've described it, they're not really shying away from other cultures, which is a very interesting aspect to this. And I'm curious to know, how does the fandom and community feel about the K-pop formula specifically being adopted and adapted by big Western brands for, let's say, commercial gain? I'm thinking here about Gap's recent viral Better in Denim campaign that featured a K-pop-esque video and a dance number there. How does the fandom feel about this? Is this something they welcome, or are they like, mitts off, this is ours?
That's a really hard one, and I really do genuinely think you'll get a different answer from every single person you ask. The Gap ad, that was by Cat's Eye, so they've done really well at kind of being adopted into the K-pop sphere, I would say. They've got that link, they've got the Korean member as well, and being formed to the same company, a lot of those connections are there. There are cases where groups have formed who don't have that same connection and have really been kind of laughed out the door by fans in what has been kind of unfortunate situations maybe. But I think fans are very protective, ultimately. People love K-pop so passionately, and the community is fiercely protective of that. The K-pop community has kind of developed a reputation for being very passionate online. But I think overall, K-pop fans just want other people to like K-pop. We just want to spread it to the world because it's so fun. It's so engaging. It's very online, very participatory, and it can just be such a positive thing to be a part of.
Speaking of the welcoming and embracing nature of K-pop, something that I know you're across that I'd like to tap into is this idea that we have in the West that, our music and our films are some of the best in the world and they're consumed by most people in the world. But that's not exactly the case, is it?
No, absolutely not. There's this whole other world of entertainment, in Asia, in South America, that people in the West just really aren't aware of, these massive, massive markets and audiences that are creating incredible content. And I think we did kind of see a little bit of that with Parasite and it winning, the Oscar, and that a lot of people went, foreign film doesn't have to just be this weird art house thing. It's this incredible art. And we're seeing that obviously with K-pop as being this output of music that, just because it's not in English doesn't mean it's not incredible and fun and engaging. And I think it's opening a lot of people up in the West to this whole other world that they had no idea about before.
Look, 10 years ago, you'd struggle to find someone in Australia who could name a Korean song, let alone an artist. Now we've got Blackpink, BTS, K-pop Demon Hunters, K-dramas, and even Korean skincare in our supermarkets. What do you think the next decade of Korean influence looks like here in Australia?
Huge question. And, it's really interesting because BTS were doing their mandatory military service, and with that, we kind of saw things kind of simmer down for a while over the last couple of years. Super convenient for me because it was when I was writing my thesis, so I got to just kind of cruise by for a bit. But now, with KPop Demon Hunters, BTS are out of the military, rumors are swirling about their next album, their next tour. I do think a fire has kind of been relit, and I do think the impact of KPop Demon Hunters can't be understated. Their impact has been huge. They've beat Destiny's Child for records on Billboard Hot 100. Obviously, we're going to be seeing sequels. I think the idea of not doing a sequel, it'd be madness, right? So I do think that will keep the ball rolling. And because I think it's engaging people of, all genders and ages especially, I think we're probably going to see this new kind of generation of people who are engaged by what K-pop might have to offer. So I do really see this as kind of the ball continuing to roll. And also, the BTS comeback, it's going to be huge no matter what. So I think that's also going to kind of keep it going.
Yeah, look, and for anyone listening who's, on the fence about watching this film, it is just all around a good story. It has good themes, it has strong themes, and it's been produced by Sony, so it is not a shit animation. You are really, really going to enjoy it.
What's not to love, really?
Yeah, absolutely. Megan, thank you so much for joining us on The Briefing.
No worries. Thank you so much for having me. And yes, everyone go watch K-Pop Demon Hunters. I'm not being paid. It's just a really good movie.
That was PhD candidate at the University of Adelaide, Megan Moon, speaking with me there. And that is it for this episode of The Briefing. If you enjoyed it, why not flick it over to a mate? And while you're there, leave us a rate and a review. I'm Spyrou. Catch you next time.